Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another video on Cobbler's Vlogs, where today we're back with another opposition view, another quick turnaround Friday, Monday over this Easter weekend. The Cobblers take on top of the league, Hull City, tomorrow afternoon, not tomorrow night. We need to get this right. I'm really confused at the minute with these fixture schedules. So, yeah, hope you all, everybody watching this live and back as a video. I hope you've all had a fantastic Easter. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit that like button. I always get that the wrong way around as well. And hit the subscribe button as well if you're a Hull City fan and you've never seen my face on your screen before. I'd like to welcome along Luke Flanagan, who's part of the Tigers Blood podcast. Luke, have you had a nice Easter? How are you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. It's fairly hectic. Moved house with 3 kids. Yeah, you don't want to be in my position. But yeah, it's all good now. And obviously we won against Crewe at the weekend. So 1 out of 2 over the Easter period. And I know you won as well, didn't you, on Saturday? So been good results for both of us. And then we'll see how it goes tomorrow.
Yeah, well, Jason Rodhouse has just put in the comments there asking if I had a nice birthday. Obviously, that Friday was my birthday, so a nice birthday present win against Shrewsbury as well. So yeah, very nice. Thank you, Jason, considering the circumstances that we're in. Managed to kind of work around the rules and get the rule of 6 in, people in the garden, all that sort of stuff. So it was all good, and the Cobblers won, which makes it even better. But I'm sure we'll all be brought back down to earth as we go and visit the KCOM. Luke, you've come down from the Championship. Obviously, last year you ended up having to play your season out, unlike us, who were just given PPG into the playoffs, and then we won that in the way we did. Talk to us about how that felt. Were you glad the season restarted, or were you kind of you wanted PPG to happen? Just talk to us about that.
Oh God, yeah, painful memories. It was good in a way that you actually got to decide, fairly. I always think points per game at that stage of the season with so many to go. When you look at teams like Wycombe, who went up, and I don't know if they'd have ever done that. They were in a poor run of form. They'd played less games. It's always a bit iffy. But yeah, we restarted, and immediately I wish it was points per game because we were rotten. But we were before that, to be honest. There was a load of other stuff around, like behind the scenes. Sold a couple of very, very good players that had papered over the cracks for a couple of years. Really bad injuries as well, which I don't think at the time was really covered that much. But obviously every team gets injuries. But we were playing basically a reserve squad at the back. Our back four was all injured at one point. And it was just dreadful, dreadful to watch. We won 2 games in 22, I think. No. And from the restart, we got 4 points out of 9 games and finished bottom.
Lovely.
Yeah, so we were 8th on 1st of January, 2020, and then 24th from the Championship in the middle of July, and we went down. So yeah, it wasn't a good record. It was not a good time to be a City fan, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I remember Wigan were kind of really unlucky because they were doing okay as well in the Championship. Yeah. They were kind of mid-table, and then obviously everything that happened to them happened, and that all went wrong for them. And obviously you guys, you mentioned there you were on the brink of the playoffs and possibly even getting to the playoffs and in the Premier League, and then it kind of just seemed to all go wrong for you. I want to talk about the transition though that you've had from the Championship into League One. I've always said that's the biggest jump in football. I think League One and League Two is fairly similar, and the Premier League and Championship, I think by the time you're at the top of the Championship, it's not that big of a jump into the Premier League compared to League One to the Premier League. That's kind of how I feel about it. What have you found from it? Or do you think maybe that Championship to Premier League jump is bigger, having done it yourselves before?
I think the Championship to Premier League is huge, but I do think I don't disagree with what you said. I think that the difference between the Championship and League One is massive. It took a while for us to kind of get used to it. I think we had a very kind of good run at the start of the season. I think we won 4 out of the first 4 because I think we played you like second or third game. And we were very streetwise that game, and I really didn't expect us to be. I thought there would be more problems caused, and it was only when we then started to play the likes of Fleetwood away where we really started to come undone, I think. So we started very strongly. So the transition was good, but I think that was helped by signings who had a lot to prove. Like people like Malik Wilkes was signed from Barnsley, kind of a Barnsley reject, but obviously he's one of the top scorers in the league now. We signed people like Richie Smallwood from Blackburn, who hadn't played for like 18 months, but had been brilliant for them in League One. So the recruitment was excellent, and I think that helped us kind of hit the ground running, I guess. Obviously, we have a lot of young players from Hull as well. And I think if we'd stayed up in the Championship, maybe the silver lining in the dark cloud, if you like, is that people like Keane Lewis Potter and Brandon Fleming when he's been fit, Jacob Greaves, Billy Chadwick when he's not been then sent on loan. There's been an awful lot of players from our 23s that have then made the debut. I think there's 9. I want to say there's 9 that have made first team appearances this season from the 23s. A lot of them from Hull, and I think that going down to League One has allowed them to do that. I think if we'd have stayed in the Championship, I think they'd have tried to sign more kind of, I don't want to say high quality players. That would be slagging off my own players, but I think managers like Grant McCann would be more likely to say, right, we're in League One, we've got a very, very good squad. Go out there and show how good you are. And I think for the majority of the season so far, the players have done what they should do. But it's squeaky bum time, as they say now, because it's very tight at the top, and I know it's very tight at the bottom for you guys as well, because you needed to win over the Easter weekend, and you've done the 1 out of 2 that you need to really give yourselves a good chance of staying up. So it's going to be interesting to see how we cope, because we couldn't cope with Gillingham the other week, and I don't know if it's going to be a similar proposition. Maybe we'll get to that later on, but at home we often struggle. It's the ironic thing. We've got a massive stadium, one of the biggest apart from Sunderland, I think, in the league, and we usually play very poorly there. We often play much better on the road, which is very strange, but there's lots and lots of reasons for that, I think. But no crowd helps, and I also think the way that we have always played under McCann is counter-attacking football, so soaking it up and then just playing on the break, and teams just let us have the ball when we're at home, and we don't know what to do with it. So we'll see.
Yeah, there was a question I was going to ask you actually that was about the stadium that I just completely forgot to write down and went out of my mind. You've reminded me about that. You think obviously you've got this big kind of arena in the KCOM or whatever it's called. It seems to change its name every year. So you've got this big arena. Do you think teams maybe look forward to coming to playing there and jump at the chance rather than maybe fearing it like they would have if there was a crowd? Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's a great point. When we first started the podcast, me and my co-host Rich, we had some ex-City players on. We had Craig Fagan on. You'll probably be aware of who he is, but he's obviously he's under 23s at Southend now, manager. But he played for us when he was in League 2, then League 1, then Championship, and then into the Premier League. And he basically came as part of the Colchester United squad in the Cup and tore us a new one. And he was like, this is massive stadium, 20,000 people. I know there's not crowds now, but that occasion, it seems to play into the away team's hands quite a lot because they raised the game. I'm not going to say it's a cup final. It's kind of a bit of a cliche kind of thing. I don't think it's necessarily that, but the team's definitely raised the game. And that was from a player who then obviously we signed about a month later because he was so good against us. He was like, he said to us, when I played for Colchester, I'm having a bit of this. This is brilliant. Like down in the 3rd, 4th tier of English football and playing in front of 20,000 people, I'm going to show them what I can do, and people might come calling. So I think that does have a lot to do with it. I think that's a fair question, yeah.
And you're obviously, another thing I was going to say is you're one of the lucky few that's managed to actually get into stadiums this season, with the work that you do. What's it been like? What's it been like without crowds there? How's everything been basically? Really
strange. Obviously, I do feel quite privileged to have that opportunity. I've covered a couple of Scunthorpe games for Varvel, and then I've done some work for a sports agency now where I do different sort of national and regional reports just for different newspapers. But yeah, it's eerie. You can hear, like, you're at the top of, all the press sit at the top of the West Stand, which is the biggest stand. Yeah. And you hear players shouting everything and what the managers shout and everything. It's a bit of a novelty at first, and you're kind of like, this is really, really weird, but I'm kind of enjoying it. And soon into the second half of the first game, you're kind of like, this just doesn't feel right. Fans are really missed. It's just, I can never get used to it. Obviously, the amount of times I've been to that stadium as a supporter, and it just doesn't feel right. It just baffles me as to why we're still not at a stage where safe distances between. We have 24,000 people. You could let 10% in. and people would still have 10 seats between them. You know, that sort of, I know there's lots of logistical things around it, but yeah, it's a very, very strange experience, and it's one that hopefully by the end of the season is a thing of the past, and we start to see fans back in, because the atmosphere is not good. The atmosphere makes games, as you know. You know, there's one little thing in a game, if it's 0-0, one little bit of magic can get the crowd on the feet and the team gets a lift, and there's none of that, which is why you see such weird results, I think, a lot of the time. Even up to the Premier League, there's been a lot of, I mean, you look at West Brom yesterday, that's not happening with a crowd, to me.
Stamford Bridge,
even with 10 men, you know, there's a siege mentality in there then, isn't there? And they're just backs to the wall. And I think it's a leveller for some teams, but it's certainly a very strange experience, and one I don't really want to see into the next season. I just want fans back in.
Yeah, it was a strange one with the fans getting back in. I assume you guys up in the north didn't get a chance to get a kind of limited capacity in back in the winter. We luckily could go in, so we have 3,000 season ticket holders, something like that, and 2,000 I think were allowed in, or something like that. So we could have probably carried on being able to go to one in every 2 or 3 games. And like you say, we can get all our season ticket holders in, who are probably the most loyal supporters out of everybody in our fan base, and you know, it's strange, but hopefully we'll be able to get back in soon. It even felt a bit strange, you know, being that when we went back into those games, because you couldn't generate an atmosphere really, so it was kind of like a behind closed doors game anyway. The fans couldn't really do anything. You just hear a bit of clapping and all that sort of stuff. Let's move on now. I assume you were coming into this division expecting to go straight back up to the Championship. I think anything else, you'd probably be, you know, a bit silly to think that. You're obviously at the top of the league, 73 points. Posh are second on 72 points. Please don't let them win the title. And Sunderland are third in 70 points. Then there's a drop off to Lincoln, down 8 points behind Sunderland on 62. Are you now thinking to yourselves, we have to go up automatically, and if not, win the title as well?
I think that's what the aim should be. There's been too many times when I've watched City over the 34 years that I've been alive that what's expected of them never actually materialises. We always seem to make hard work of it. I mean, to answer your question at the start where you said, you know, you'd expect to go straight back up, I actually didn't, because the club was in such a state and it was kind of so volatile around the club, which has kind of calmed down a little bit. But if we lose to you on tomorrow's game, you just check the Hull City hashtag on Twitter and it'll be fairly toxic, I would think. I don't think it's anything different from many other teams, but it just kind of feels a little bit different. As soon as we don't do what's expected, there's kind of a lot of internal fighting amongst fans. Fans point the finger at the manager, and then some defend him, and it's all a bit of a mess because the whole thing with the owners has separated and divided fans ever since they tried to change the name to Hull Tigers. So I don't think you're ever going to kind of, you know, make a massive kind of thing until they're gone. And you know, there are boycotters. They go to away games. They don't go to home games. That sort of thing. But I mean, I hoped that at least we'd be comfortable to mid-table to try and make a playoff run. That's what I'd hoped at the start of the season. But then, obviously, maybe sort of 12, 13 games in, I had kind of changed and think maybe we should be aiming for the top 2 or 3 at least. That's what we want to happen. But you know, Posh are always in and around there, aren't they? And I don't think many teams like Posh, to be honest, from the fans that I've talked to from other teams. Rivals, so yeah, that's it. And then obviously Sunderland are technically the biggest club in the league if you go on stadium size and fan base and stuff, because they're just, you know, anywhere up northeast is absolutely mad for football, isn't it? So that they seem to be in a worryingly good run of form, which kind of worries us because they think they've got 2 games in hand. I would hope we go up automatically, but it's never as easy as that being a Hull City fan. I'm sure any Hull City fans listening to
we can definitely relate as a Cobblers fan. It's never mid-table mediocrity, is it? It's always a relegation scrap or promotion. Do you think that behind, you know, do you think you'd be a bit upset that you kind of have this promotion campaign behind closed doors, or are you just like not bothered, don't care that I haven't been able to go to, you know, Fleetwood away, like you said, or come down to our ground with a half-field stand? You know, are you just happy to get back into the Championship and have those better away days and stuff like that next year?
Well, I mean, better away days to me are actually going to places like Northampton or wherever, where it's proper old-fashioned grounds and not just, carbon copies of the same stadiums. I think a lot of City fans are actually really disappointed in some ways that we have done so well, and if it does go to plan, all of these ground ticks that they would have had, they're now going to miss out on. Wimbledon is the big one because Plough Lane opened. The amount, I mean, we won 3-0 away there as well, and that I said to Rich when we recorded the kind of reaction to that win, that'd have been brilliant in the away end. It was sort of 15, 16 degrees, sun shining. The chance would have been out. It'd have been absolutely amazing, and it feels kind of bittersweet that there's been some great performances, but the fans have not been there. And you'll know as well as me, iFollow is not a good way to follow your team, is it?
No, it's not. I remember reading your article that you published on it that was quite good, and I was just like, if I was like a teacher, I'd be like tick, 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 yeah, everything. It's just, and I'm sure you'll probably be glad that you haven't got to listen to our commentators, and we're probably quite glad that we've not got to listen to yours on Saturday afternoon. I mean, I have no idea what they're like, but there's been some dodgy ones. I've tried not to slate them, especially the northern ones, because I'm going to university up north next year. And I'm like, well, I could actually end up working for Radio Lancashire, so I'm not going to say anything. Let's go on to the reverse fixture then. You mentioned it earlier. We played you very close to the start of this season. It was a standard 2-0 win for you. I remember you came here. You appealed for everything. You screamed in the ref's face for everything. You shithoused your way through it. I got really annoyed on Twitter. You're absolutely loving it. And if it was the other way around, if you were sat where I am and I was sat where you are, I'd react in exactly the same way. I think I put a tweet out which rattled a few Hull fans. I think I was like, half-time substitution. George Honeyman has now come in to referee the rest of the game. I think it got that bad. So talk to us about that reverse fixture. What did you think of us in that game? I think because we kind of thought at the start of the season, playing against these big clubs, that we were too nice to play against.
Yeah, I actually, when I do watch the away games, obviously it'll be through iFollow, and I do often listen to the away commentary because James Fletcher is our commentator, and he's pretty decent, to be fair. He's one of the better ones in League One, and we often have an ex kind of player on with him. But I do remember listening to the Northampton commentary and the kind of screaming, howling, and every time that a kind of a City player went down and the referee bought it, sort of thing. All they're doing is just rolling on the floor, that sort of thing. So I'm sure we would have been in the same kind of position. We'd have said the same thing. But I think it was a solid performance against, I think, a team that struggled under Keith Curle. I maybe you can answer this, but I always found it very odd that I understand the kind of approach to playing direct football, which is definitely what we were not kind of used to in the Championship, and when teams like Northampton would obviously try and do that to play to your strengths. I get it, but the 3-4-3 and playing direct just didn't seem to add up to me. The way that somebody like Gillingham, for example, they would play a 4-4-2 kind of counter-attacking, and as much as it isn't something that would be something that I would like, but I understand the approach. I do get that. I would understand if Keith Curle had kind of done that, but he didn't. He's kind of playing like a wing back kind of thing. But all he seemed to do when the keeper bowled it out to the right back was it's a diag into the striker that couldn't hold it up. I mean, I know he's not there now. He's not there now, is he? And Callum Morton, yeah. So I don't know if it's kind of changed, because it's very difficult for a manager to come in during a kind of mid-season. So I thought we were comfortable in that game. But are they a different proposition? You need to tell me. Are they a different proposition under Morton than they were under Curle?
I would say we are. I think Keith Curle, last year, the reason it worked for him is because he got the players right. But it was more 3-5-2 than 3-4-3. But at the time, you could see it becoming that as well. But I think last year he got the personnel right with Charlie Good at the back. He was a proper shithouse and all that sort of stuff. Get Callum Morton and Verdane Oliver. Verdane Oliver was the man that was holding it up and flicking it onto Morton, and it worked.
And he's shown how good he is this year at Gillingham.
Exactly,
as well.
with Gillingham, And again, we were kind of like, when he left, we were kind of like, Gillingham, really, Gillingham? Like, surely we could have kept him. So I think the personnel we just got wrong. John Brady, since he's come in, the players have kind of said. So he said the players hadn't had their minds stretched for a very long time. So we are trying to play the right way a lot more. We've kind of reverted back to type a little bit in the last couple of games. Like Shrewsbury, you wouldn't say you could see that we were trying, pass the football and all this kind of stuff. We just kind of did what we needed to do to get the 3 points. So it has changed, but I don't know. I think we've done better against teams like yourselves that probably would come at us a little bit more, and we can hit them on the break. So I think this game probably suits us better than it would have under John Brady, better than it would have done under Keith Curl, because we would have just hit it long and nothing really would have happened. Whereas now
it didn't stick.
We're starting to see
it never really
quality,
did.
yeah.
I think there was like one or two chances towards the end where the kind of the striker just blazed it over the bar, but I don't think they ever really caused us a problem in that reverse fixture. But maybe I think tomorrow is a kind of different proposition because of just the way that teams kind of set up against us at home is very kind of defensive and again hitting on the break. And if that's what your team does well, then teams like Shrewsbury and Milton Keynes Dons and teams like that have come away with 1-0 wins. Ipswich did the same. That was the last game we lost, and that was a very, very accomplished performance from Ipswich. They knew exactly how to nullify us. So if it's like that, then it may be a closer game than a lot of people think. But we shall see tomorrow.
Cool. And how have you been doing recently then? Last time out you beat Crewe, and before that you had 2-1 draws against Trinningham and Shrewsbury. Is that just something that we shouldn't really look at? You'll get back to winning ways soon enough.
I think it's you can't understate going undefeated for that many amount of games, because I think we won 5 on the bounce before that, and then 2 draws and then another win. That win at the weekend was massive. We played very poorly. In fact, second best to Crewe. Crewe are good football inside. We've struggled against them every single time we've played them. I think we won 1-0 at home early on in the season, just like a little bit of brilliance from Wilkes won it. And obviously the same was last game on Saturday. But we played them in Papa John's Trophy, and that went to penalties, which were the worst penalties I've ever watched. It was 0-0, and I think it was 2-1 on penalties or something ridiculous. Like they didn't even hit the target. Yeah, absolutely awful. But they were very good. I think I don't know if you can read too much into that, but I think when teams get physical with us, as you've seen. Teams like Shrewsbury and Gillingham are a different kind of threat to Crewe. We've actually struggled against both. We've struggled against teams that can play it on the deck really well, but our defenders are quite young still. They're 20, 21, 23, 24 maybe. And at the minute we've got Reece Burke, who's been our kind of number one choice next to Jacob Greaves. He's been out injured. He may be back for the game, but I doubt it. So we've had to drop Alfie Jones there, who's our CDM. So that's kind of how teams have kind of, tried to get at us with the kind of direct passes forward, get it down and then get it wide. And again, teams like Shrewsbury and Gillingham have then nicked points from us and done well with that. So, it's a tough one to call, I think. But I think if we'd have drawn against Crewe, I think I would be probably more despondent, but I saw enough in that game in the second half to go, that's one of the performances when you're not playing well and you still win. That's what you want from a team who's kind of going to finish in the top 2, or whether it's in a reverse thing, if it was going to be you, that you would stay up,
Absolutely. I have to say, looking at the table, seeing 22 wins, the number 22 under that W, my heart just sunk. There's us who've just hit double figures in wins. And I was just like, how must it feel to win a game? Let's talk about the men that we should be looking out for. The first man that I want to mention, those of you that watch regularly my Friday night live streams, a bit of FIFA career mode, we've taken Cobblers to the Premier League, and Malik Wilkes has been an ever-present since we were in League One. I think I stole him off you guys. So talk to us about him, first of all. What kind of quality can he bring? He's obviously a winger, or can he sometimes play as a striker? I am a winger on FIFA, but you tell us that.
It depends which City fan you ask. He has played through the middle and done very, very well there, but there are also games where the opposition nullifies him really well. He's better on the right, in my opinion. City fans may disagree with me, but McCann usually plays him there, so that's a usual indicator of where he thinks he's a better player. He, on his day, he's magic. He's absolutely unplayable. But he is a very, very inconsistent player still. He's only 22, so he has got those kind of bugs in his game. He'll often take 2 or 3 touches when he doesn't need to, and he often leans back too much and shoots and skies it over the bar. If he had, if he worked on his finishing, he would be. I think people were linking him to Burnley a few weeks ago. I'd never believed that for a minute. But if he'd sorted out his finishing, he would be by far and away the best forward in the league, because he'd have over 30 goals. At the minute, I think he's around the 20 mark, so he's still very, very good and one that any team would want in the side. But there's a lot more to come from him, I think. He was good for us in the Championship last year, although inconsistent, and I think he's more consistent this year. There are just a few things that he still needs to iron out, and he has this little habit of throwing himself to the floor when things are not going his way. If the ref buys it, great, but a lot of them are not doing that. And Josh McGuinness, particularly the striker, are often just shouting and just say, get up. So it's good to see that, to be fair, because nobody really wants people falling on the floor and diving all over the place. But he does have a tendency to do that if he's been double marked. Because obviously sometimes takes two, one to kind of shadow him and the other to try and nick the ball. And teams like Shrewsbury have worked that out really well. So yeah, he's a very, very good player. And one that I hope is on fire tomorrow, because he did nothing for 90 minutes on Saturday and then popped up with a great winner. And that's what a good player does, I think.
And then the other man that I was going to talk about was Keane Lewis-Potter, seems to be one of the best young kind of talented players in the league this season. Tell us about him, and then if there are any others that you want to mention as well. You mentioned McGuinness. Anyone else that we should look out for?
Keane Lewis-Potter, if the fans were in there, they would be singing his name constantly throughout the 90 minutes. He's from Hull. And nobody loves, if somebody's from the hometown, they play for the hometown club. That's something that the fans have that kind of extra thing with, don't they? He's had a difficult time in the second half of the season. He started on fire, and then there was a dispute about his contract, where there was a kind of standoff between the club, and that caused even more toxicity from the fans towards the owners and the other way around. It was sorted in the end, so he signed a 3-year, an extra 2-year deal. I think he already had another year, but then he 2 years on top of that, and he started to show in some games recently the form again. He's only 19, so I think, or just turned 20. So he's a player who can be electric. He did amazingly well against Oxford. Obviously, Oxford are up there pushing for promotion as well in the playoffs. He absolutely rinsed their right back every single time. So he's very impressive. Alfie Jones is one to look out for. It depends where they play him. He's very versatile. He was at Gillingham last year on loan, but we got him from Southampton. He's got a year deal, I think, as an extra year, which if they don't take it up, I will be astounded. He can play centre-back or centre defensive midfield. He's very, very confident on the ball. And, I mean, other than that, George Honeyman, one of the most assists in the league, I think, is him and Callum Elder have this free kick routine that you should look out for. One of them dummies, and then the other one hits it in. And you can never... I've tried to work it out as to which one they go. Like, if there's a little rhythm or whatever, there really isn't a signal. It just seems to be kind of made up on the cuff. But yeah, those two have been crucial to us from set pieces. So that's another couple of things to look out for, I guess.
Awesome. So let's finish off then. How do you see tomorrow's game going? We're very divided in the fan base. A lot of people think, let's just, it doesn't really matter if we lose. Or some people are like, we have to get something out of this game. It doesn't matter if we lose. People are kind of, let's rotate. We've got Bristol Rovers next weekend, who are in and around us in that mini sixth league relegation league at the bottom. So we're seeing this as kind of a free hit. Let's just go for it. If we get battered 5-0, fine. If we get a point or a 1-0 win, absolutely brilliant. How do you see it going? Do you think, as a promotion winning team, you must win games like this if you're going to get out of this league?
Certainly is a must win, in my opinion, yeah. I think every game from now to the end of the season, for any team, whether they're battling relegation or whether they're pushing for promotion, every team needs to be trying to get as many points on the board as possible. When you're playing the teams around you, I think, for example, we've got Sunderland soon. If we were ahead of them and got a draw, I don't think that would be an awful result. But when you are playing, when there's disparity between the two teams in the league positions, you want to be trying to do that. I think it'll be a low scoring game. I think I don't really want to. I can't call it. I did this before against Gillingham and I said it would be 1-1 and it was. But I think it'll either be 2-1 or 1-1. I think it'll be a very, very close fought game. We often have a lot of shots that either the keeper has worldies or we just can't hit the target. So I don't envisage being a high scoring game because we often don't score more than 1 or 2 at home. And I'm not sure what your stats are like away. I don't think it's particularly brilliant from what I saw. Is it better than home?
Yeah, well,
I think
not been great home or away.
Maybe playing on the counter attack kind of will play into your hands. But 1 goal has often been enough to win the games at the Cake-On when I've gone there. So 2-1 or 1-1, can't really decide.
On the fence.
On the fence, yeah.
I might just go out there and be like 3-0 Cobblers and just we'll go batter them or something like that. But
hey, stranger things have happened.
Exactly. I'll go for a 1-0 Cobblers win, but like I said, I don't think because we've now got that little bit of a cushion over the relegation zone, 3 points it is. I don't think it will hurt us too much if we don't win tomorrow. But a point, we'll be happy with. Well, we'll be delighted with a point. A win would be even better. So thank you very much for coming on, Luke. You're obviously a part of a podcast, and you. I was about to say write, but you edit and write for Vapor UK, who I write for as well. So just tell us about where we can find you on both of those, please, and anything else that you want to mention.
Yeah, so the podcast is at Tigers Blah. His full name is Tigers blah, 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 which is a kind of inverse of a chant that a lot of other Yorkshire teams say ironically to us in a response to Mauled by the Tigers. But that was my co-host Rich's idea for Tigers blah, blah, blah. That's the full thing. Easier to call it Tigers Blah, but it's that on Twitter. And then I'm Luke OT92 on Twitter. So I also write for Vavel UK, as you say. Obviously, we're in the same office for that. And I also write for Vavel USA for MLS, which starts again soon as well. So I also have an MLS podcast, if anyone wants to listen to that, which is at ML Yes Podcast, because you should say yes to MLS. That was the kind of marketing around it. But that's in its infancy, but that's another one of my favourite leagues. So if you're interested in that, check it out.
Absolutely. So if MLS is something that you fancy getting interested in, or you're already interested in, go and check out the MLS Yes podcast and all the Luke stuff. You'll see, an extremely biased match report as well towards Hull after the game. I'm sure that little wink. So yeah, I'm sure it'll be all good. Don't worry. So yeah, and check out his podcast as well if you want an even more biased view on the game. And if you don't, just stay here and watch me rant after full time. Cool. So yeah, thanks very much for coming on, Luke. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I definitely have. Hopefully we don't get mauled by the Tigers on Monday afternoon. I had to get it in there somewhere. Well, what do you think of that? Do you find it a bit embarrassing, or is it just like let's just go with it?
I think teams just think it's like, I mean, the most tragic word in football banter is tin pot, isn't it? And that's what a lot of people call it, but it's done ironically because we know it winds other teams up.
Fair play.
It's just like I think we did it once, and everybody was a massive outcry going, "Look at how embarrassing this is!" Like, well, if that's how people are going to see us, we'll do it. So we do it.
Fair enough.
I think the best was when we won 2-0 away at Leeds, and we did that.
That went everywhere, didn't it?
Yeah, absolutely, it was brilliant. But yeah, it's just a bit of fun. Nothing embarrassing about it at all.
I could really imagine the area I sit in at Sixfields is right next to the way end, so there's a lot of kind of back and forth, which is quite good. I could just imagine all the whole fans just turning and doing that towards our stand, and the way my area would kind of react, it wouldn't be good.
I'm sure. I do miss fans again. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. So yeah, like I said, thanks very much for coming on, Luke. Thank you everybody that's watched this live. Quite a few of you tuned in. Thank you for all your comments and stuff like that as well. And if you're watching this back as a video, which it will go out as, thank you very much as well. Make sure you could leave a like on it, please. That would be awesome. That will set off the YouTube algorithm and get all the annoying Hull fans to come and watch us. And if you hit that subscribe button as well, that would be awesome. So my thanks to Luke. Thank you to everybody watching. Hopefully the Cobblers get a result tomorrow. And until next time, we will see you all later. Bye-bye.